How do you write dialogue that drives your story forward? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down the purpose of dialogue and how we can leverage it to really move our story forward in very creative and intentional ways. So hi, I'm Charlotte Chipperfield. I'm your book coach and developmental editor. And let's talk about dialogue. This is one of the things when I first started writing that I just assumed that dialogue appeared when characters needed to talk. And that is not always the case. There is a purpose behind dialogue. So dialogue is really a tool that writers can use to bring your story to life. So it can reveal character, it can build tension, and it can really move your plot forward in very subtle or very dramatic ways. But writing dialogue that feels very authentic and natural is a little bit harder than we all wish it was. It takes a little bit of skill to get into your groove of how do we translate how humans talk onto the page with purpose and doesn't completely lose our readers along the way. So it all begins with giving your dialogue purpose. So every piece of dialogue in your story should serve a purpose. And that means we don't just have characters talking for the sake of talking or just because we haven't had characters talk in a while. All of your dialogue needs to have a purpose. So how do you create that intention behind your dialogue? This could look like revealing characters' motivations. It could be deepening a relationship between characters. It could be creating conflict or providing information that's really important to your plot. So really the bottom line with dialogue is that it needs to move your story forward. So here's a couple questions that you can ask yourself when it comes to defining the purpose of your dialogue. So within each of your scenes or blocks of dialogue, ask yourself this first question that is, what does this conversation reveal about my character? So this could be showcasing that they have nervous habits. Maybe they bite their nails when they're talking, or maybe they tap their foot. There's different little mannerisms that can come out, but there might also be literal information that's revealed about your character. So in a conversation, two characters might come up that your character has a slightly dark past, or maybe they were arrested once. There could be information that's revealed, or it could be something around who they are as a character and how they move about the world through their mannerisms. So the second question to ask yourself when you're looking at a certain block of dialogue is, how does this dialogue push the story forward? So how does it move your story forward? So in my last example, when I was talking about a character who maybe had been arrested in their past, and maybe that was revealed in prior chapters of dialogue, and now that piece of information has planted a seed either in the reader's minds or other characters that actually maybe this character is capable of having committed the crime that started in the beginning of your book. So if you are writing a mystery or thriller, that could be a great premise for planting these seeds for everyone to start questioning, actually, is this person who we think they are based on this information we just received? So that information can then push your story forward, because now we're going to start collecting more information about who this person is, what is the event that took place that kicked off the story, and who did it, right? So that might be the premise for your book, or it might not be. But again, the question here is, how does dialogue push your story forward? So the third question to ask when it pertains to, is your dialogue in the right place and moving your story forward, is, can this information be shown through action instead of dialogue? So sometimes the mannerisms can be shown, just from them operating in their life, the characters, or it can be shown and highlighted through the use of dialogue. So this is a great opportunity to see, does this need to be spoken information, or can you reveal it through your narrative or backstories? So these are just 3 questions to consider as you are evaluating the role of your dialogue. And if you find that a conversation just doesn't have a very clear purpose, consider just completely cutting it, or consider how it might actually add value to your story. Okay, so the next step when it comes to dialogue is to differentiate your characters' voices. So your characters shouldn't all sound the same. They each have their own backgrounds and perspectives and personalities, and we want that to come through, especially through your dialogue. So here are a few ways that you can differentiate characters' voices. So one is using very unique vocabulary or phrases for each character. And this can be really fun as you're creating your character profiles and really developing them either before you're writing or as you're writing, to really think about, what is my character's use of vocabulary? Is it very vast and expansive? Do they use a lot of big words? Maybe they're the complete opposite and they don't use a lot of big words, they use shorter, sweeter words. What is their vocabulary? What phrases do they often say on repeat? Do they have any life mottos? All of these things can help bring out their personality and really differentiate the voices of your characters. So another way to differentiate your characters' voices is consider where they came from. So this is where you can dig into their backstory and understand what was their upbringing, what was their education like, what's their personality. Another way to differentiate your characters' voices is to play with the sentence length and rhythm. So maybe you have some really fast talkers and they talk really, really fast and that's just kind of how it flows. And maybe you have some other characters who are a little bit more thoughtful and have pauses in between their sentences. It's kind of fun to play around with it. And it's just, again, another way that you can differentiate your characters that not only make it clear to your reader who's speaking, but we also kind of get a greater sense of who they are through the way that they are talking. So the goal in being able to differentiate your characters' voices is making it very clear who is talking without always having to say he said, she said, they said. We want to make it clear that through their mannerisms, their personality, their cadence, their way of speaking, their vocabulary, that it is clear. It's totally okay to use those tags of he said, they said, but we want to make sure that when we are skipping and that dialogue is going through, it's clear who's speaking and there's a clear purpose to that dialogue. So if you've been around my channel for a little bit, you know that I have a couple videos on show, don't tell, and that also pertains to your dialogue. This is a wonderful opportunity to exercise showing the reader versus just telling the reader what is being said between your characters. So instead of a character getting mad at their significant other and being like, I'm angry, they don't necessarily need to say that. You can show it through actions. So maybe someone leaves the room and slams the door, or maybe someone slams their phone down on the countertop, or maybe they slam a cabinet or clench their fists. There's different ways that you can kind of show what they are feeling without them having to state it. So an example of this might be, I can't believe you did that. After everything. Her voice shook low and hard. So you get this sense of like, not only is there tension, you're getting a sense of how they're reacting to what they've just learned, and we're getting to understand that they're kind of like shook. Their voice is lower than normal. It's very hard, it's sharp. So these are ways that you can experiment with dialogue to really show the reader what they are feeling, what they are experiencing, and we get to learn something new about them. So when you can really dig into showing emotion, especially in your dialogue, that creates an even stronger emotional resonance with your readers that they can feel it. And the more your readers are gonna feel, the more they're gonna love your story. So another aspect that's really fun to play with in dialogue that continues to help move your story forward is the use of subtext to create tension. So subtext is what is not being said, but what maybe is felt between what is actually being said. So this can really heighten your story. It adds tension and really layers to both your characters and will kind of continue to hook your readers in. So for example, if you have two characters who are arguing about, oh my God, did you lock the front door? And neither of them can really remember, but really the argument isn't necessarily about who didn't lock the door, it's really about a crumbling marriage. So the words exchanged might be about the door, but the tension beneath that is actually about something much deeper. So try writing a scene where two characters are talking about one thing, for example, did you lock the door? And that's their surface conversation, and then see if you can't actually make the dialogue about something that's deeper going on between these two characters. So look for those opportunities where you can create tension with subtext to really highlight what is happening in these characters' lives and what maybe it could be coming down the pipeline. So another tip for really helping dialogue serve a purpose in your book and move your story forward is to cut the fluff. And I know this is really hard to do because we never want to cut our darlings, but if you have characters that are always walking into the room being like, hi, how was your day? We don't need the fluff. We want someone to dive straight into it. Maybe they're taking a shot of tequila on the bar because they had a bad day. And we don't need to know, I had a bad day. We don't need it said. They're taking that shot of tequila, their demeanor, they have rounded shoulders, they're tense, they're not greeting the other character very friendly. There's different ways that you can show that, again, the show, not tell, and keep building that tension and really serve a purpose with your dialogue or we don't need the hi, the how are you, how's it going, unless there's a specific purpose to that character saying that. So I'm afraid to tell you, but we want to cut the fluff. No one wants small talk. So when it also comes to your dialogue, another tip is to really think about how you can balance that dialogue with the action. So when we just have straight dialogue, while it might be revealing information and helping move your story forward, if it feels really flat and there's no action, it actually feels like the characters are just speaking out into a void. And we know they're not, but it feels like that. So this is where you can really ground the reader by adding descriptions that really help us be in the scene with the characters. So this can be through setting descriptions, it can be through body language, that's a really important one, and then you can check the box with show, don't tell as well. And just general physical movements. You know, if we're two people standing in a kitchen having a conversation, we might be unloading the dishwasher, we might be chopping onions. Like there's different dynamic and things that can be done that allows the characters to interact with the scene, which again could reveal information. So even if a character is cutting onions and they go to the spice cabinet and they realize that that's also where they hide their cigarettes and they didn't quite push them back further enough in the cabinet, we might see that character quickly close that cabinet and wait for the other character to leave the room before they add the seasoning to the onions. There's all sorts of different things you can do with movement that also helps to balance out that dialogue and keeps your story moving forward. So my last tip for thinking about how to really write very compelling dialogue is to read it out loud. So this is once you have it draft, once you feel like you've got purpose and some action, some movement, you have things happening with your dialogue, then it's time to read it out loud. Because this is when you can decide, does this feel natural? Is this something that my character, based on how you know who they are and how you've developed them, does this feel like A, something they would say, and B, does it seem to flow? Is it natural? If you find that you're tripping over your words or like stumbling or kind of like, wait, what did I mean here? Then it's time to revisit and see if you can't edit, tighten it up, clean it up so that you have really strong dialogue that is going to land with the reader and achieve the purpose that you've set out for it to serve. So writing really strong dialogue is a skill that can be developed. It does take some practice and does take some time. So if you're in the beginning stages as a writer and you're just like, I cannot get my dialogue to land in the way I want it to, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, I invite you to try some of the tips in this video and just remember it really is a practice and it will get easier the more that you do it. But it really starts with making sure you have a very clear purpose to the dialogue and you want to have clear voices, you want to make sure there's movement and there's information being revealed for the readers. So I hope you found this video helpful on how dialogue can play a purpose and really move your story forward. If you like this video, please like and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here and I will see you in the next video.